All you need, one camera, one lens. My name is Marty Gervais, and this is my review of the new GFX100 II from Fujifilm Canada. A little bit of background. I use Micro Four Thirds cameras. My preference has always been small and light, and I was thrilled when Fuji brought out the first X100 series a number of years ago. And now I own a number of other cameras from Fuji. All are small and light, and I operate mostly with one lens. I run out the door with the camera slung over my shoulder and maybe another lens tucked in a coat pocket. It's a practice developed from a lifetime as a journalist. I carried a Canon F1 with a 50mm lens. Fires and floods, elections, summer concerts, car shows, pie eating contests, you name it, all the gear I needed. I was thrilled when BJ Photo Canada, a Waterloo, Ontario family-run camera shop with Fujifilm Canada sponsorship, gave me a chance to use this newest medium format camera on the scene. At first, the hype around it sailed past me because I figured it wasn't something I could use. It weighed a little over 2 pounds. It dwarfed the X100V. But then I heard this newest iteration had adopted measures to make it a better all-around camera, notably for action, street, or even sports. I gave it a try. My first photo was in a nearby woods in Windsor, and a woman walking past me was entirely taken with the first change of autumn color in the landscape, and unbeknownst to her, I captured her with her arms stretched gleefully out behind her. I took others in the soft light, and at one point, when I turned on the trail, I was struck by this blaze of yellowing, shimmering leaves. None of the color, those deep reds of northern Ontario, except for the splash of clumps of red banberries on nearby bushes. Our woodlands here in the southwest instead breathe the soft yellows and faded browns of the American poet Robert Frost's stroll into the yellow woods. And on my way back home, I spotted the quietude and contrast of a dark window with weathered and crumbling panes set against fine lacy curtains. A backyard picture of clothespins, the ordinary domestic scene shot at f3.5, with clotheslines practically disappearing into the array of orange and browns of a backscatter of light. I also made a quick run to the other side of town. I was chasing color with the sun glowing on the rising towers of the new Gordie Howe International Bridge rising above the Detroit River. I finally retreated inside to a not-so-well-lit room with the muted glow peeking through a set of flowered curtains. And I noticed how it highlighted a small windowsill figure. Lovely halo, sharp detail in the screens, dazzling but not over-the-top colors. Shooting this on simulations but backing off on the Velvia choice. Another image of 2 newspaper frames, one from the Second World War, one of the Kennedy shooting, both awkwardly askew, and another windowsill collection of battered hockey pucks with fading yellowed tape marking the date of the game-winning goal. Again, magnificent light, the story in the detail and tone of the curling tape. I was conscious of the GFX series' vaunted reputation for high resolution and rich tonality in stunning studio portraits and glorious landscapes. It was aimed at the professional market, and the difference this time around was transforming it into a more versatile camera product that would not limit itself. What about action? What about street photography? What about point and shoot? Everyday portraits. And for my curiosity, the real test was a neighborhood boxing club in the shadows of the original Ford Motor Plant in Windsor, Ontario. The Border City Boxing Club is home to several Canadian amateur and professional champions, and so it is to this place that I ventured. One camera, the new GFX100 II, and one lens, the snub-nosed 45mm 2.8. I started right away with Jaden Trudell, the 19-year-old welterweight champion training hard for a rematch. He was working the pads with the wily Andre Gorgeous, the Iraqi-born former Ontario champion and now coach of the club. I only had the GFX100 II at this point for a little more than a few hours, and not really enough time to be comfortable with its ergonomics. Or I thought so. I jumped right in, quickly shifting the ISO to 2000. The day had turned overcast, and the gym that late afternoon was dark and challenging. I set the shutter speed to 500th of a second, and I shot wide open at 2.8, all JPEG, straight out of the camera-provided simulations. And soon I was at ringside following the lightning jabs, right crosses, body punches, and the dancing of three boxers sparring, and each taking a turn one after another. I never noticed the time running down, and then I heard Jaden at ringside barking out encouragements. He leaned on the ropes, intense in his gaze, and his neck glistened in the light with sweat from his workout with Andre. It was then I realized I had been lugging this beast of a camera around without any effort. It could have been my XH2. Weight wasn't the slightest concern. This was the only package I needed. The 45mm was the perfect focal length, fixed on continuous focus, 8 frames a second. Soon I moved to areas outside the ring, fighters working the heavy bag. There was Rosalind Canty, 18 years old, now the Ontario champion in the bantamweight. She comes from a family of boxers. Her mother, Margaret Canty, was a 3-time world champion. Framed by 2 swinging heavy bags, Rosalind dipped in and out, and from side to side, firing and timing quick jabs and uppercuts. The radiant background walls behind her adorned with old photographs and boxing ephemera. As I turned away, other fighters were tiredly stuffing gloves into lockers or into gym bags, while others wrapped their hands for sparring, or worked the speed bag, or hydrated themselves after the workout, or lazed and leaned on the heavy bag, catching their breath and studying the action, while still more resumed skipping, jumping, or shadow boxing in the mirrors. This camera worked the scenes without a thought. Magical the way it eked out such deep, rich, gorgeous color with detail and drama from the poor light of an old gym on a dark afternoon day. Physically, the GFX100 II appears chunky, prodigious, especially when you are accustomed to the clean, retro lines of a camera like the tiny X100. Mind you, this is a medium format camera, and so it shouldn't disguise itself as anything more than that. The grip certainly declares its heft, but surprisingly it is a good feeling in the hand, actually steadies the hand. You are holding something substantial. And as a medium format, it carries a kind of elegance. Another blessing is that when you bring the EVF to your eyes, it is vast and clear. I actually found my eyes stretching to catch the corners as I framed the action. The buttons and dials are perfectly placed with no distraction. In essence, this new GFX is really a simple camera to use. The camera is everything that Fuji promises. It will deliver arresting and handsome portraits, stunning landscapes, meaningful street action, and offers up color and gorgeous light control. You also really don't need to worry yourself deep into its menu system. Go with the tried and true. Set the shutter speed with a dial, twist the aperture ring to 2.8 and dial in the ISO, and there's nothing to hold the camera back. The clicking sound of the shutter is satisfying and reassuring, and the color is dazzling. There's no real need to fiddle with simulations. I went with whatever was in the provided list, but also experimented with the new Riella, which softened the reds of the canvas ring and the nearby lockers. It provided a much truer color to what I was seeing. Outside on the street, the Riella took on a different tone, a little flatter. This is a big step for Fuji, and for me, moving from cameras that are smaller, more accessible in terms of heft, this was a surprise. It is versatile with blisteringly fast autofocus, and there's absolutely no need to fear for what unfolds in front of you as you move in to capture the action. You can trust its performance. You can concentrate solely on the image and forget everything else. You suddenly find yourself in the midst of action, moving directly in, just a hair's breadth from it, and capturing the scene in a more compelling and authentic way. I believe this camera is a package for every day, especially if you pair it with a smaller prime. Take it with you. Leave everything else behind. One camera, one lens.